Welcome everyone to OnPodcast, our Microsoft podcast, where we talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I'm your host today, Kramer Anderson, and I'm joined by
David Allen. Hey folks, how everybody doing?
We have a very short podcast for you today. We're going to try and run through it because we have things to do, ladies and gentlemen. Not to say that you're not important, but we got to get on with our weekend. So do you. So we're going to start with our headlines. What's our first headline?
Well, we've got some games coming to Game Pass. Boy, I messed that up right off the bat. We've got some, we've got some Game Pass games coming to NVIDIA GeForce Now. So Microsoft has strengthened their partnership with GeForce Now, as we had talked about in previous weeks. This is likely due to the Activision Blizzard merger. So you're getting Death Drop, Grounded, No Man's Sky, Mountain Blade 2 is kind of where we're starting, and those were available as of yesterday, August 24th, and I think you said something along the lines of there was a No Man's Sky update as well that people needed to check out.
Yeah, it's a big update. You guys can go check that out. I'm glad that Microsoft's expanding to their games on other platforms, especially in lieu of the big Starfield release, I believe, which is it next week or week after next?
If you're a pre-order person, I think you get it on the 31st, so that would be in the next week.
Okay, well, look out for both those amazing, expansive space games. I have some business news, so I'm gonna pause it for a second on all the fun things. We have Microsoft's 365 roadmap, which was announcing 9 major updates for Microsoft Viva Pulse, which is a feedback solution for teams leaders and managers to obtain immediate insights on the team's performance. Things we got organization-wide customizations. We have a wider reach, scheduled rescinding, create from scratch, teams integration, flexible end dates, and question libraries, email interactions, and policy integrations. Most of these things are basically they're offering templated versions to make things, interactions, versus using Viva Pulse, so Viva Pulse requests, things like that, more automated. So those will be coming to people, I believe, starting in December. These were put on the roadmap in this month, in August. For those of you who are, I suppose, insiders or work with partners regularly, I'm sure you're going to be getting access to this at the latest by next month. So you can start preparing for that as an IT admin. We hope that these things are great for Viva Pulse users. I didn't even know what that was until we wrote about it this week. So I hope these are things that you guys want or have at least requested. So look out for it. What else we got?
I'm going to jump on the business train here for just a minute before we go back to the fun stuff. Microsoft is talking about the future of Microsoft Teams, and I know we have brought this up with the new Teams that has came out in the last couple of weeks, that things are a little more streamlined. It's a little bit quicker, a little less bloated. So I'm hoping, despite all these new add-ins, such as Copilot for Teams phones is coming here soon, where you can schedule your calls. You can also be able to share your minutes with your team members. So think of it as your family cell phone plan. That will also be an option. And you will also be able to collaborate your notes using Copilot in your Teams meeting with your Teams members. My one suggestion to Microsoft is, we see this collaboration process. We know you're trying to pile everything in there, but please, 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 Microsoft, don't bloat Microsoft Teams where it takes 5 minutes to load every time. We would appreciate that.
I think Microsoft just put on their headphones as soon as you started talking. I don't think they heard any of that. So we'll hope that they eventually get around to making sure that it maintains slim. Or maybe they'll just need a kick in the butt when, Slack makes a much slimmer version or something.
Could be.
We got Microsoft launching Edge for Business for those of you who are IE users clinging on to that usage still and worshiping at the altar of ActiveX. Maybe this will finally persuade you to leave. Microsoft earlier this week announced Microsoft Edge for Business, which is its very boring name. It was originally scheduled for August 17th, but it looks like it took them a little bit longer just to release it, maybe for security reasons. One of the main features is automatic switching between work and personal browsing that keeps work and personal data separate, including caches and storage locations. Microsoft emphasizes Edge's ability to ward off cyber attacks. And I guess you're also going to be able to use this on your browsers, on your mobile devices. So if you have iOS or Android, you can connect those same profiles, those work and business profiles, work and personal profiles on your mobile devices. Regarding interface changes, there aren't very much. It looks identical to Edge as is. There will be a new badge that just says Microsoft for Business. For those of you who use Microsoft Intra IDs, you'll be automatically signed in as soon as I guess you have this on your device and you log in for the first time or open it. IT administrators will be able to control policies and configurations in Edge for Business through the Microsoft Edge Management Service. We mentioned in a conversation previous to this about how Microsoft's catching up to Chrome finally and allowing the ease of use between profiles. This allows fewer windows on your desktop, which is always nice. You can save up a little bit of RAM, and you can also just finally pick one or the other. If this is what was one of the reasons why you were using Chrome for one thing and Edge for another, you now be able to kind of, just choose one side and use both profiles for that. What else we got?
Let's see. We've got, this one was a little confusing to me. We have the Sony PlayStation Portable Remote Handheld is set to launch later this year for $199. Now, when I first read that, I thought, great. We've got a Steam competitor, a ROG Ally competitor for $199. Hold on. Maybe I need to go. Yeah, maybe I need to go join the Sony ecosystem. But
there it is.
We had, guess what, folks? It's just an in-home streaming device. There's no 5G, no 4G, no nothing. You can stream on the same Wi-Fi network as your existing PlayStation games because guess what? Boo, big boo. Because it has to use your existing PlayStation library and your existing PlayStation to stream those games. It does not even work with the PlayStation Cloud Gaming Service. So, as we had mentioned, I think Sony is testing the hardware idea here. But for the folks that need another in-home streaming device, hey, there you go. $199 will get you one. But if you want to do it with an Xbox, you can do it on a tablet. You can do it on any device by just clicking download, and the app is free. And I'll leave it at that.
This is a bit of a head scratcher. I don't know what Sony's intention is for this device. If it's just trying to dust off the cobwebs from the PS Vita team or whatnot. Maybe they're just trying to get into making handheld gaming consoles. Maybe this is the first gen, limited capabilities. Next gen, add a little bit more. Gen after that, add a little bit more until we get to where we wanted them to be in 2023. I think you got one more headline for us.
Let's see. What to have?
No, I think that's it.
Yep, that's it. That's it, my friend.
I think we can get into our main discussion, which is also about gaming. We had Gamescom this week, and we had Phil Spencer just rattling off about things. But before we jump into that, we have to preface a lot of this conversation in the shadow of Microsoft's big move to basically divest itself from Activision's cloud streaming service. They have propositioned the CMA with an agreement that will basically give Ubisoft cloud streaming license rights for the next 15 years in perpetuity, while they kind of take the other sections of Activision Blizzard. What this really means is that they will basically give Ubisoft the rights to any games that will be put on cloud streaming on any platform that come from Activision Blizzard that were established now and going forward. So the next Call of Duty will still be, made by Activision Blizzard. Microsoft will potentially own that. If you want to do a direct download, if you want to go to GameStop and buy a disc yourself, you'll still be able to do that. Microsoft will get proceeds from that. But if they decided to say, you know what, day and date, we're going to offer it on Game Pass with this new deal in place to appease the CMA, they will have to basically give it to Ubisoft, then rent it from Ubisoft, as everybody else will have to do at the exact same time. So Call of Duty going on Game Pass means that Call of Duty goes on whatever version PlayStation has, whatever NVIDIA has been using, whatever. What are the other ones? I think they're trying some name. Boosteroid, Ubitus, and Inware. They will all basically go to Ubisoft and say, hey, we would like to license that game to put on our cloud streaming service. What is the price for it? And Ubisoft will say, hey, whatever the price is per usage, this is what the flat rate is. And Microsoft will have to pay that, even though they could potentially own the company that makes it. That is how they are making this seem on the up and up for the CMA going forward. We will see where that takes them, what this means for the company going forward. We know that cloud streaming was, a priority of theirs, but it's not as big as we thought it was. We found out during this court proceeding. Making mobile games is what's big for them. And I believe that is what Spencer talks about. And I think you can jump into that as well as far as our Gamescom coverage.
Yep, looks like now that we're getting the Activision Blizzard merger out of the way finally, maybe by October we'll get this thing finalized. Looks like there could be an Xbox mobile game store starting in 2024 at some point in time, with the idea being that these games will be available on mobile. For example, Call of Duty and Diablo were brought up specifically, and when you first think about it, you say, well, Call of Duty is already on mobile. You're right, but it's a stripped down version or a arcade style of game is probably the best way to put that. What Phil is referring to here is getting the real Diablo and the real Call of Duty out in people's hands on these mobile platforms, finally taking advantage of these $1,700 phones such as the Galaxy Z Fold 5 that you're reviewing. We can start taking advantage of these hardware, start taking advantage of these 5G networks, start taking advantage of these bigger screens and play bigger, the real titles on mobile platforms. That's something I can't wait to see.
Yeah, we mentioned that Microsoft was after the mobile aspect, which is the King version that always gets cut off in the titles when you hear about this acquisition. So it's Activision Blizzard. Its full title is Activision Blizzard King. They have a distribution platform for getting things onto mobile. Microsoft is after that. That'll be a very key part in this mobile platform for next year. I don't know if they're going to be able to develop as quickly the full versions on mobile, because again, they're going to have to basically kind of rewrite the whole game for mobile. But what we might be seeing, at least in the next the next year or so, are companion apps that make much more sense than just saying here is a map, or here is instructions on how to kind of create a gun. So you will be getting maybe top-down versions of strategy games, kind of like they did with Halo Strike. I think it was called that, yeah. Or I think what was the mobile version that they had for Gears of War, which I thought was pretty fun. We might be getting those because they're licensed to those properties now to kind of make that kind of stuff.
I don't remember off the top of my head what the title of that game was, but I did play it.
I think it's Pop, right? Gears of War is Pop or something like it was a Pop game or something like that.
Something like that.
So now that they potentially could have license to those games, they can start making those companion expansion experiences for those games. The other thing we have is Microsoft. Phil says, don't expect any price drops anytime soon. I think we got our last one about 2 months ago. They came out with a new version of the Series S, which I think was at the same price, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe I think it was up $50, $300 for a 1 terabyte version in all black. But that is going to be the last thing we see as far as prices shifting, even for the upcoming holiday season. His quote was, "You're not going to be able to start with a console at $500 thinking it's going to get down to $200. That won't happen because the core components that we use, they're just, we believe in Moore's laws, and most things will shoot up and to the right. But the components that they're using, you just can't buy them anymore as a hardware maker because nobody's making that kind of RAM for those components. So they're not selling at scale enough to make it cost friendly. It's not the way it used to be, where you could just take a spec and then write it up for over 10 years and write that price down in points. It's why you see console prices staying relatively flat. So for those of you that are like, I'm going to wait to get the next bundle or console offering, ain't going to be happening anytime soon. So if you're sitting on that money, you might as well spend it, is what he's saying.
Unfortunately, no discount for you, but I don't disagree with his reasoning here. In order to make a premium console, you've got to have proprietary parts, and those proprietary parts are not mass produced, so the cost savings is only going to get so far.
Well, and it seems like they kind of knew that this is going to happen, or at least reach to this point, which is why they made the S. He references that prices aren't coming down. We see it now, and that's why we did the Xbox Series S. So instead of everyone forcing everyone to pay $499 for the Series X, you can go pay anywhere between $220 and $300 to get a console that does relatively well, a little bit better than even last gen's consoles as far as performance is concerned, and get access to all the games and still have a great time. So that seems to be where he's coming from as far as console variations and pricing. Just go get the Series S.
I've got the Series S, and I will throw this in there. I'm very happy with it. It's a 1440p with the occasional upscaling to 4K as possible with some games, and I've got it on a 1440p high refresh rate monitor, and for me, it's perfectly fine. Now, I understand there are those folks out there that want the high fidelity every second. You want 4K 60 in everything you do and everything you play. But I think for most gamers that are, mom and dad are still carrying the lunch pail to work, the Xbox Series S is the perfect way to get into this ecosystem, because once you're in, you've got access to cloud gaming and all these nice other things that you talk about. And that's the way I look at it. A $250 investment gets you into the ecosystem, and then you can choose what you want to do after that.
Speaking of which, Spencer goes on to talk about the future of the Series S. And he says, I don't see a world where we drop the S. I want to make sure games are available on both.
Yes.
Both. That's our job as a platform holder, and we're committed to it with our partners, despite all of their grumblings. I did the last part. People who are upset about the S potentially holding back developers from creating these next-gen console gaming experiences. But as we said, this is an entry point for people to add more people to gaming as a whole industry than to just kind of hold it exclusive to people who have a substantial amount of extra income or have higher gaming taste or requirements, so to speak. One of the issues I think recently we were running into was Baldur's Gate 3, which is an amazing RPG that everyone's kind of raving about. When they talked about releases, they mentioned PC and PlayStation 5, and obviously Xbox fans were upset about that. They've come out and said since then that it will eventually come out on S and X. Just going to take a little bit more time because of the Series S. But the plus side is Xbox gamers will still get it, and people who pay $200 or $250 or whatever to get the Series S will not have a chance at it. You don't need to go buy a new PC. You won't need to buy a PlayStation 5. You just have to sit and wait a little bit. And this is the benefit of the Series S for some people. Last bit of news we got. What do we got?
Well, we got, for us old folks out there, I was a beta tester for the Xbox 360, so I'm kind of dating my age here a little bit. Microsoft has announced that the Xbox 360 store will be closing down soon. I don't see the actual date here. Do you know the date off the top of your head?
I don't know the date, but I want to say last time I saw it, I think it actually next year in July. So there we go.
So basically what you can do here is most of the games that were popular on Xbox 360 have been put into the backwards compatibility program, and you can play those games still on your new Xbox Series X or your Series S. Now, some of them have been put through an upscale process. I forget the buzzword that Microsoft put on that at the particular point in time, to where you can play some of those games at 1440p and even 4K. But long story short, you can still play most of those on the PC as well. That's also a positive. The other thing to that is, I guess sometimes good things have to be put to rest, and it's time to move on to the current generation.
I mean, it's also technically a win-win for Microsoft in the most cynical way, because what Spencer says for most of this, and I'm paraphrasing, is these games will be available on PC. They have been made available on PC. Xbox tries to make as many games available on PC as possible. So if you can't get them on the console itself through backwards compatibility, and you can't get them through Steam, get them through. The PC will have access to an emulator, and you will still be able to play your games. And again, as long as you're playing the game, Windows is 70% of PCs in general in the market these days. Microsoft still gets their cut, so to speak. You still get to play the game. So if you were sad about this, you have about a year to figure out your options to get. I believe it's 220 games you listed that are not backwards compatible. I don't know if they'll have that list will go down by next year, by the end of this, if they're working on those numbers, or if it's going to stay 220. But if any of those games that you were a fan of, like Bubble Bobble or something like that, that doesn't make it to this list, try it on Steam, try it in an emulator. Either way, it might be available on your laptop, which is probably far more powerful than what the Xbox 360 was 12, 13 years ago.
And I still can't get the title that started Xbox Live off. I still cannot get Microsoft on the backwards compatibility list or on my PC.
I'm telling you, emulator, it's out there, my friend. You need to find it. Yes. And that brings us to the end of our podcast. It was, like I said, a relatively short one. It's we're in the dog days of summer, so news is far and in between these days. But we want to thank you for joining us. Before we wrap it up, we want to kind of give you a preview of what we're going to be reviewing, kind of hardware we're getting into. I have the Samsung Fold 5, Samsung Flip 5, thanks to AT&T. They sent those over, so I am currently reviewing those. I gave my initial impressions. They can go be found on the website. I am also wrapping up, meaning I need to write out. I already have all my notes and everything organized. The Lenovo Slim 9i 14 and 16-inch reviews. Spoiler alert, micro LED is the future for displays, and Microsoft needs to get on board. Hopefully that's what they'll be talking about in September. I also have the Dell Touch 24 monitor, which is the Surface Studio-esque type monitor, the one that swivels and hinges. Dell's released a couple of these in the past. This is the most recent one. So if you are a fan of the Surface Studio laptop but not the computer itself, this might be an option for you. I'll be reviewing the CZUR, I believe is what it pronounces, Smart 1080p LED projector. And then for those of you who are looking to upscale your conferencing, video conferencing, or hosting a podcast or streaming, the Fifine K688 microphone, and that really has the USB XLR dynamic mic with shock mount and touch mute buttons and a headphone jack, and the Fifine BM88 boom arm. So kind of position it where you need to and stuff like that. I'll let you know what those are like next in the upcoming weeks.
For me, I have just recently, as of yesterday, gotten in a new Lenovo ThinkBook, which was referred to as the Lenovo Twist at CES of 2023 earlier this year. So I'm very excited to see what that is about. I've got, I'm a little behind on the Robo and Kala 2-in-1 review. I've been under the weather this week, so that will post early next week for you guys. If you're looking a Surface Pro alternative, let me give you a tip. If you can wait till Monday or Tuesday of next week, you can certainly go check that out. I'm going to make that suggestion to you. I've also got the Ace Magician Mini PC. So if you're thinking about a mini PC, yes, I'm really talking a mini PC here. It is a fully functional PC that is about the size of a Roku box. Yes, folks. Right now I have it running with 3 monitors connected to Ethernet ports. Have no problem, so I'm excited to bring you that review. And I'm also working with Synology, which is a NAS maker for those that are familiar with network attached storage. Their products do interface well with Microsoft 365 Cloud. They interface well with Google Cloud. You can use those products to back up your Microsoft Cloud without paying the extra Microsoft fees. And you can also back up your Google Cloud without paying any Google fees. So you're going to see the reviews of that and reviews of that software coming to you shortly. I think some of our prosumers and small businesses will be very interested in what those units have to offer.
And we want to take a minute to thank everyone who's hung in here with us for this podcast. We want to thank you for listening, not just today, but since we've been doing this. We appreciate the feedback and the attention. We also want to say thank you in the form of a giveaway. We're going to start bringing those back. My wife has been basically punching me to get all the stuff in my closet out. I get a lot of review stuff. Some of it I get to keep, some of it I have to send back. But for the stuff I keep, I want to share with you guys. So going forward, I will have a better roadmap of what will be available and when. But the giveaways will be coming back, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're interested in microphones, docks, chargers, as you mentioned, storage, I have a bunch of mini PCs. So for those of you who are revamping your workstations or getting ready for school and can't afford a dedicated laptop or whatnot, there are solutions, and we're here to help. We are establishing a relationship with AT&T as far as getting mobile stuff as well. So we'll see where that takes us in the future. But again, we want to let you guys know we appreciate you. We hopefully you appreciate us. And this is just one way for us to show that. Where can people find you on the internet these days?
David PHA1978 hanging out on, I'm going to call it Twitter. I still can't call it X.
I think everyone else is, yeah.
Yep. I'm on Twitter, David PHA1978. Jump over there and say hello.
I am Minded1 on Twitter. If you're looking for me elsewhere, you can find me at Kareem Anderson on Instagram. Same thing for Threads. We mentioned, we were talking a little bit ago about Threads being on desktop. So those of you who are Threads curious, you can head over to the website, I believe, and then use Edge to make it a dedicated app, PWA, that sits in your taskbar. So maybe your usage of Threads will go up, and we could all just leave Twitter at some point, hopefully. With that being said, we want to thank you guys for joining us for another week, and get out of here. Leave us alone. We'll see you next week.
Have a good weekend, folks.